Welcome back to the Code Yellow podcast, where we're talking about relationships, dishing the gender war, and we are just talking about relationships from a lens of scripture and good old common sense. Zav, what you got for us?
All right. What's a jingle that has stuck in your head? Just give me a jingle. I'm gonna start. It can only be
Jared.
Y'all don't know that?
Nah,
Is it the ring?
I think that's
It's the ring. It's the truth.
No.
It can only be my voice. Jared.
Yeah.
Let's do a 3-part
The
harmony.
one?
Jared. Okay, I'm joking.
Okay, wait.
All right, so that's my jingle.
Okay,
That's my
mine
jingle.
is
What y'all
like
got?
a good neighbor, safe I'm is there.
There.
Mine is 200-300 Empire.
Oh my gosh. See, I don't know if I'm weird. I'm an instrumentalist by nature, right? So the one thing that sticks in my head, remember that old Six Flags ad where the bald guy was jumping around?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a good way back.
Yeah,
Yo,
that's
that
way back.
lives
That's
in my
all-
brain.
I love that one.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yo, core memory. I forgot.
I do not know what y'all are talking about.
Yo,
You didn't watch
I got
that.
you.
What?
Yeah,
What?
I
it's
got
really
one for
good.
you. The little
Okay.
transition for Doug. Chicka-poo-pa, chicka-chicka-chicka-poo-pa. Like when we go to different scenes. The
For which
cartoon
one?
Doug. They used to go on Nickelodeon.
I don't know if he was born yet. Was he born yet?
No,
way.
I was born,
We're
but I
not
didn't
that
watch
young.
Doug like that. But I think
Wait,
I
did I
know
just
age
age
group,
myself
us
on the
80s
podcast? I
babies.
thought we were peers.
I'm a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Not. Wait.
When Doug
Okay,
came out,
maybe
they were
not.
still like,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah, they were like
diapers,
elementary school.
training.
No, I
yeah.
watched Doug.
No, don't worry about
You
it.
Yes,
didn't
I
watch it when
did.
did you watch it when it was on? Or
Yeah.
Right, not syndicated. Like
Like
when it was like,
syndication.
Yes, I did. And like Daria and all those shows. I used to watch that.
Nah.
Okay, whatever. You know what?
So since we're aging ourselves and dating ourselves,
Right.
are we gonna reveal ages right now? Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Nope.
Never mind. Oh,
You said no? Okay.
I'm proud of my age.
Jasmine
Amen.
said no, so I said
No,
no.
if y'all want, let's do it.
Hey, all right. I'll start. I'm the youngest. I'm 29. Turned 30 in January.
Okay, I just turned 30 last month.
I'm 37.
I'm 36.
Yes. So we got a wide age of ranges. We got people born in the late 1900s, and
Wow.
Devin, I didn't know
I'm
you
about
were
to leave.
29.
Let me
yeah.
catch
How
up
old do you
this.
think I was?
I don't know. I thought you were in your 30s, not because of any, like, just we're all
So
in
I'm
our
starting to look
30s.
dusty already.
No,
No, you
so
just
do
look
I
short.
look
You look
right?
short.
Do I look dusty?
No, you don't.
We never look dusty.
Thank you.
We never, us people of color, we never look dusty.
Amen.
Right. That's why.
Love all of y'all,
Right.
but
Everybody.
I feel like some of the dust falls on like some black people specifically, and then they age worse than the rest. But
they
won't
wasn't
call
living right.
names.
That's why.
It's like
Right.
sometimes your
If you live
lifestyle,
like a
yeah.
hard life, yes, you.
Sometimes, yeah.
It shows.
Yeah.
Yes. Whew. So let's shift gears. We are talking submission.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
I love this topic.
This is such a
I
dangerous
like this topic too.
Yeah.
Why is it dangerous though? Like it should be like natural. It should feel good. It should be
Should.
respectful. But
Should.
that S word,
It's an
people
S word
do
for
not
real.
like that.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, we're trying to escape the gender war thing, but that's like the leading topic in all like the gender beef, or one of the leading topics. Is definitely in the top 5.
Yeah, without
Right?
a doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about it.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually looked up because I just like understanding like God's intent for things and what like the Bible originally was talking about, because sometimes like just as like the literal things get lost in translation, things get lost in biblical translation as
Facts.
well. And so I looked up the Greek word for submission or to obey. It means it's word upotasso, and it means to get under, to arrange in order under. So essentially a hierarchy of things. So that is God's intention of the word.
Right, right. So at what point in the process leading towards marriage does the topic of submission become appropriate?
That's a good question. I think, and I say it as a single person, like my understanding of it is, like submission is for married people. Like I do not submit to my boyfriend. I submit to my husband. But I think as far as like the people dating, I think there's things to look for in dating that tell you whether someone is to submit. It doesn't mean to submit during dating, but I think there's certain characteristics and certain things that you should look for to see if somebody's worthy of like when you guys get married, what that will look like when you fully submit to them.
So for the fellas that's watching this right now, you're a woman, so what should they be modeling in order for a woman like yourself or any single woman out there to submit to them? Because some of them are watching podcasts that aren't as good as ours. Just letting you know that. They watching podcasts, they listening to so many people, listening to so many voices. Right. And so what are some things, women, what are some things that men who are watching should do? Let's give them some practical stuff early on. Like, what should they do in order to be submittable, if that is a word?
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think obviously number one, and it sounds cliche, but it's not, like making sure that the man who you're submitting to is submitting to the authority of God. Because like, where are you leading me, and who's leading you where you're leading me? And so that's like probably definitely the number one thing I look for. Number two, I think it would just be like that the person is like a man of honor, a man of character, a man that like is in his word, a man that like is not easily influenced, like a man who is solid in like who he is. He's grounded. So like those are just like a few things that pop off the top of my head. Jasmine, what about you when you were
I'm thinking
dating
like one conversation for sure, just like in conversation, throwing it out there like, what does submission look like to you? What does that mean? So just kind of like listening to what natural understanding is, right? And then also, like you said, just observing his character, his leadership in general, not so much like him leading me, but just like him as a man, like able to watch him like with his family, because he has a big family, and just like those values and things like that. So like, is this somebody that I could submit to because of the respect that they show as a man, right? And to other people. Like, is that something that I would agree with, right? If I'm submitting to that. And just also too, like, that it wasn't like this, like, dictatorship.
Amen.
And like this, rod over my head, like, well, you're just supposed to do what I say, and do what I'm supposed to do. What I say, you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. No, and another one that pops in my head also that goes along with what you said is like that they have like morality and just like the fruits of the spirit. Like when you're talking to me, even if you are directing me in the right space, into the right place, are you kind? Are you loving? Are you like, like when you're talking to me, right, even if you are directing me, like what does that look like as you're directing me? Are you open with conversation? Are you like, those are all the things of like what it looks like when you're looking to see if this is somebody that you can submit to long term.
Yeah, I would agree for sure.
So submitting to God. So all fellas got to do is go to church one day a week, and they good, right? That's what y'all ladies are looking for. That's
not the description of submitting to God. We didn't say church attendance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Talk that
Drops
talk,
mic.
sis.
Hey, but that's some dudes. That's they think that's permissible. They think that I go to church for a couple hours a week, once a week, and like that's me submitting to God, and that's not really what women of God are looking for.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, church, like I mean, it's I guess what people consider the anchor point of their religious experience, but the true walk is what happens on those other 6 days. Amen. Whether you go to church on Sabbath, Saturday, or Sunday, like. What does that look like? You can't be submitting to God just once a week, because if you are submitting to God once a week, you're not submitting to God, are you? Because I mean, it's always got to be there. It's got to be part of your daily, like everything. Yeah, so how can, and this is the great call for the brothers, like what should we be doing to prime ourselves to have that ideal walk so that we are walking in the direction that a woman would want to follow?
I think that just getting wise counsel. I'm someone that, y'all know me. I'm someone that has so many mentors. I'm just like, I'm always gleaning. I have mentors like on LinkedIn. I was like, they're my mentor. because like they're in business, they're entrepreneurs, they're at where I want to be. So surrounding yourself with godly counsel. I know me and Devin have the same mentor. So that's the first thing fellas can do. I think the second thing they can do is just seek God and ask God to, just refine your heart. And what I mean by that is there are many dudes that want to be fathers. There are many dudes that want to be husbands. They want to be entrepreneurs. But, I think I mentioned it before in this podcast, seek ye first. You know what I mean? I was convicted a couple weeks ago. I was just like God's word does not come back to us void. He said, seek ye first, and everything, all these things shall come to you or whatnot. So if it's a wife, it is a wife who is submitted, right? He would align your path to find that woman, like whatever it is. So seeking God is so important. And I think that's two. And I like to do all good things come in threes. And so the third thing that a gentleman can do in order to get a submittable woman,
a woman who submits,
is I feel like don't come out the gate. Don't come out the gate saying that. And I say that because like it's kind of like this buzzword that is very like polarizing. So if you have a woman and she might be open to it, but it's the first thing you say, like, man, my girl got to submit to me. That's like, bruh, like, can you even order dinner first at Cheesecake Factory before you even have that conversation? You know what I mean? Just don't let that be the first thing out your mouth. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And I think, and this is really gonna put some men up on game. I think that even for me, one of the things I struggled with was like not submitting, because I think when all the ducks align in a row, and when like you have a man who's like submitted to God, who's in his word, who's like doing all the things, and you see all the characteristics of submit. As a woman of God, like when you start moving towards like talks of marriage and stuff, it becomes almost difficult for you not to kind of let him lead. And I think that that's like, it's like what, like if that truly is what it will be, you don't even really have to ask, to be honest. Like the woman just naturally starts to like heed to what you have to say and trust that, okay, I may not agree, but like he is yet to lead me astray. And I know that it's not even just him. Like I know if he's saying this, he counseled with God before he even brought it to me. And I think when you start seeing those things, a man naturally do those things, submission becomes way less of a topic. It's not that it doesn't happen, or it's not that it doesn't become like something that at times, because as humans, we're gonna stray to our own like independence and whatever. But I think when you really start to see those characteristics, you naturally just have to, like, I think for me, I have to be like, oh, that is not your husband yet. Like, you don't have to, and for me, because like, it's just like, he's so worthy of it. And so that's putting y'all up on game for real.
I was just thinking, and something you said, like, I think a lot of times when we talk about submission, that people think that, like, I think women, and particularly maybe even men, but women may think that when you are, and I'm gonna go like this, submitting, the way that they're operationalizing it, is that God is going to reveal something to the man that he's not gonna reveal to the woman. And so it's almost like, it's not like only God is only going to, like, granted, God, you have your personal relationship with God. And so, yes, God may reveal something to my husband that I may not see for a different reason. Maybe I haven't been spending enough time, or maybe he's giving it to my husband a certain way for a reason, because that's the way my husband's going to receive it. But it's not going to be in a way where God is just leaving me out of it, right? And so I think people think that you're just having to follow someone blindly, and God is like, God is not including you in the equation. I believe that you'll have a peace because you too have a relationship with the same God. That if your husband is submitted to God and you're submitting, that you'll have peace with that.
Right.
And also too, that one thing, we've had a conversation with friends who, especially women friends who are like, they want to be married, but their submission is a bad word. One thing that I like to bring to the conversation, to the topic, is that, I believe that, I don't want to say that we submit to each other, but I am more comfortable submitting because my husband makes space for me too. So it's not, submission isn't about only what he says goes. I think a lot of women think that that's going to be the case too, or people, right?
Yeah.
Because men think what I say goes. And if you don't agree with me, you're not submitting.
Right.
I submit to his leadership knowing that there's space for me to offer a different perspective or to bring my strengths. And it doesn't make him any less of a leader or, you know, I'm overstepping and not staying in my place. And so again, like, I believe that God will reveal to both people in the relationship, even though you are submitting, but it's not like you just relinquish all. Like, I feel like people just think it's like submission means docile and because I'm not,
Right.
but I'm
Neither
also
am I.
not like a quarrelsome, unagreeable,
Yeah.
you know, disagreeable woman either.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really interesting how people have learned to like operationalize this word submission and what it has come to mean, that therefore it's a bad word.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for sharing. I think the getcha gotcha is like a lot of stuff is caught, not taught. And I love what Annie said. It's like when you are in a space where this man is submitting to God and seeking his Father, like if you have a relationship with God yourself, you like it's gonna all come together. It's like, oh, the Holy Spirit is impressing me. Like, yo, I kind of need to chill out. I need to be quote unquote submitted to. So I love that we're even having this conversation because like there are people that have this negative stigma and it's just like literally this impenetrable. Help me out, baby.
Impenetrable.
Impenetrable.
It cannot be penetrated.
It cannot be penetrated. It's like this wall that is just like you hear submissive, they automatically like lock up or whatnot. And it's like how, whether submission is so many other things in our life, what are those walls that's just like you cannot penetrate? And it's just like that's the thing that God will use in order to refine you, to give you the life that you dreamt of. So we have to be very mindful of that.
Like, I really thank God because, and this is part of my testimony, I don't think my mom would mind me sharing without going too deep into my familial personal life, is that I did not necessarily witness submission, marital submission in the home, even though my mother was married at one point. And so it's not impossible when I really sought God on marriage and was like, what is godly marriage? That's what my focus was. I was like, people get so excited about marriage. That's where I was. I was like, okay. I went to my pastor at the time. I was like, show me in the word why I should be excited about marriage. And once this desire in my heart, like I became like excited about something that God designed and then wanted it for myself. And then when I learned that, submission is a part of God, like I looked forward to it. I didn't really lean on, I didn't see it at home. And I was thinking, well, since I didn't see it, maybe mine will last longer. You know, like it was something that I wanted to achieve, because I felt like it was one of the things that may have been missing from the marriages that I had seen, that I had the closest proximity to.
Right.
I didn't look at it as like, oh gosh, like the submission thing. I was like, well, Lord, I want to be equipped. And if this is the thing if this comes with the package and I'm saying I want to sign up for it, like, well, show me that part too. So
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you.
So I gotta say something for the fellas. The act of bearing someone's submission is so serious. It should not be taken lightly. If you really think about the implications of it, it's a little bit terrifying.
Yeah.
Because you are bearing the responsibility almost of somebody else's soul. And their salvation, or however you want to phrase it. Can we talk about headship for a second?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I texted Zav about this. I was reading Numbers 30, and it took me out. This is basically what it was saying. When a woman is under her father's house, if she says something rash, she like swears by heaven or earth, whatever, she says something, and her dad says, nah, forget what she said. That's not real. She will be able to escape that oath she just put up, that big thing she just said. And then when she transitions out of her father's house into her husband's house, her husband's able to do the same thing. If she says something crazy and her husband stands up and is like, all right, chill, then she doesn't have to eat the fallout of whatever she said. Yeah. But if he doesn't say anything, if dad doesn't say anything, husband doesn't say anything, she is liable for the full extent of whatever she said. Like, to have that in your hand, to be able to, like, if you know your wife or daughter has said something wild, and you can kind of cover her, like, it's a responsibility of covering somebody. And some of us fellas, we don't have enough whatever to cover ourselves, much less we're trying to cover somebody else. And we want somebody to submit to us.
Wow.
And we're not even holding a compass. Like it's not a small deal.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, so my prayer for all of us is that, you know, we get right and we find the resources, the equipment, the mental fortitude to actually bear the burden of being responsible for a whole other human being to the extent of their and your soul salvation. Like, that's crazy to be designed that from somebody you're not even married to. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, so now let's talk about this then. If we're trying to feel out the world and, like, see who's willing to submit and who's not, and who's submitting to God and who's not, where does the idea of submission start? I know you would submit to your husband, but you kind of have to have husbandly and wifely qualities before you get married if you're going to be able to show yourself as that. So where does that conversation start?
I mean, but do you? You said that, and I was like, well, do you? I was just talking to Jazz. I was having a conversation with a really good friend, and I was like, yo, how's your mental health? And she's like, yeah, it's doing good. And she's like, I'm taking a break from some friends just to, you know, they're not the most positive. And it wasn't random, but we were talking about that conversation. I was like, yeah, you got to separate from certain people. And she's like, women will keep other women single. And so we're talking about submission, right? And if your homegirl's like, yeah, girl, you don't got to listen, you don't got to do this, that, and the third. It's just like, well, she's single and she going to keep you in her single boat. It's not going to be this thing. But I was just thinking about what you just said. And what works for one person might not work for someone else. And where I'm going with that is, like, I don't know if you have to have all the qualities, all the thing. Annie might be a woman where it's just like, yo, this dude has no husbandly qualities, but I'm willing to work with him. I had the greatest dad in the world, and I'm willing to show him, and I'm patient. And you know what I mean? Like, I know your daddy. You know what I mean? I'm willing to work with him. So, like, he don't got no qualities, but, like, I got a woman who's so patient. But then there's someone else who's like, yeah, bro, like, red flag. That's a red flag if you have no husband quality. So, like, we have to be very mindful of just what works for one person might not work for me. And what works for me is cool. If that works for me in my household, in my relationship, in my future, and the things that I want to do, that's cool. And I'm not judging nobody else, but we got to be mindful of that. So that's when you ask, you know, what are the qualities and, you know, this, that, and there's like some of us have zero. But guess what? We're going to marry someone that's going to refine us and be so dope and be so loving and be so molding. And and that other person is going to be gracious and patient and show grace as they're learning during that process as well. And humble, like, yo, please teach me. I want to be the best for my family, for my community, for my church, for everybody, for my village or whatnot. So I was just like, sometimes you just don't have it. You know what I mean? Some of us are not equipped. We're ill-equipped. But we're going to marry the perfect person that's going to make sure, like, okay, you're ill-equipped now, but that's why you're in this relationship. That's why you're with me.
That sounds very ideal.
I know.
Like, I mean, ideal to the point where, like, there's people that's waiting on that and not doing the work on themselves. Like, they're waiting for somebody to sweep them off of their
magic carpet.
Yeah, like to sweep them off of their feet and take them to the land of emotional intelligence and take them off to the land. Like, I mean, at some point, it's easy to say, oh, everything's subjective. But at some point, there's got to be some measure that is, at least at its core, helpful for most, if not everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think sometimes, and I don't know, I don't remember if we've talked about it before or mentioned it, but I think sometimes we can get into a space of, like, I agree with what Zav said, because I think what works for some won't work for others.
Right.
But then also I think one of advice that I was given that I really adhere to now is sometimes, you go into a relationship wanting to change people and wanting to like, oh, that's fixable later. But then it's like, one of the advice that someone gave me was that you have to look at the person that you're with now, good and bad. And would you, if they never change, if like these things, if he never gets better, if his headship is as good today as it's going to be in 20 years, like, is this someone who you want to submit to, or is this someone you want to grow with, versus like, oh, we could fix that later. And I'm not saying that what you said is untrue. I think we just all have to be mindful that like marriage does not fix things. And obviously y'all will tell me better than I can tell other people, but like marriage, you can't go, it's not that of course marriage is a refiner, but don't go into it thinking that you're going to refine something in such a specific way. Like the diamond might not come out in the shape or as big as you thought it was going to once it went through the fire. And so I think yes, but also like be careful how many allowances you're making when you're looking for, oh, well, he's not that, but maybe he'll be later and stuff like that.
I was thinking, and this still goes back to fruit. Like, I feel like, when we really think about it, everything goes back to, I feel like, the fruit of the spirit. But I was thinking a good way to maybe gauge what submission could potentially look like in relationship is confrontation. How is confrontation handled? How it's navigated? Because depending on like if somebody's petty, right, and that goes back to your fruit,
right?
Yeah,
that's going to say a lot about what the submission is going to look like on either end, or the leadership, right?
Or if they can apologize,
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
What does the forgiveness look like? What does the patience look like? So, in the confrontation, I think is a good way, but it could be something small, it could be something big, but I feel like how you kind of retreat in that, or how you stand firm, could be a good way to kind of like, that's it could be very telling.
Yeah. I always say this whenever anybody asks me, oh, how do you know you're ready for marriage or whatever? Just, I'm only been married for 3.5 years. So I don't know everything. I've dated Martha for a very long time. So we did learn a lot. I will say that one measure that I've found to be pretty solid is like your first worst fight. How did it go? And did you end it with a net positive? If you made it over with some extra benefits at the end, y'all gonna make it. And how do you know if it's your first worst fight? If you ask a couple, they will each instantly know which fight it was, and instantly like it takes you right back. So that's one thing. So that thing about confrontation you said is very, very key. It can really reveal a lot. And yeah, marriage doesn't fix, it reveals. There's a whole lot of people that think that where we think that we are selfless and great and loving and all that stuff, structured and whatever. And nope, that marriage will out you. Yeah. It will out you. It'll show you, you don't really know how to plan for the future. Oh, you really selfish. Like you really in here in the streets for yourself. Like, yeah. So it's a growth journey all around.
That's for sure.
Wow. So, with regards to all of this stuff, how is the future of the world looking? Because it's terrifying out there. It is terrifying. Like, and sometimes it feels like you have to compromise. Like, how do you battle that?
What do you mean when you say when you say compromise as it relates to submission?
Because I mean, you get married to who's in your immediate reach, right? Or you
who's on your phone reach. You know
who's in your phone, right? And then like, I feel like so many people like they have their subjective view of what relationships should be, and they treat it as the objective measure by which everybody should operate. And then they go out in the world telling everybody that, hey, you need to be like what I need to be, or whatever. Like, but then at a certain point, that's not, you can't push the world to be like you, like, right? You have to find somebody that works. But like, how do you figure out which things you can deal with and which things you can't, even with regards to submission? Like, what is, like, if you haven't agreed that submission looks like this, how do you bridge the gap between you and this next person?
I feel like you won't know until you like kind of like get in it, and then a conversation must be had. So effective communication. But yeah, some of us don't know what we don't know. We've never seen it. We only heard the buzzword on Instagram. You didn't know what submission was before they started talking about it on podcasts and interviews or whatnot. So, I think researching it, seeking God, and then ultimately, like when you get in it, just have a conversation like, hey, I would kind of like for you to, not talk back when, or us not argue at each other, or us not try to get the last word, or, whatever that thing, however you define submission. And I feel like you have to be on one accord with your significant other when it comes to submission, most importantly. But again, if you don't know how that looks, if you don't know what submission looks like between your dynamic, I think talking about it is going to be key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think submission and respect go really hand in hand. Yeah, because I think a lot of times when people hear submission on either end, the respect aspect immediately disappears, and which is why people may get defensive or feel a way about it, right? Because they think submission means without respect. And so maybe it could become more palatable if they see submission and respect like they're related, and or what it looks like together. So.
Yeah. I think that you should know yourself, because I think, there's so much like we said, there's so many different sources that are telling you like what submission is. And obviously we have the main source, the Bible. But I think also even before you even get to submission, I think like you need to look inward and like what you think you need. Because I think going back to what Zob says, like your definition of like what you might need in a partner as far as submission, like could be different from what you think you need, and could also be different from what God is going to use in your marriage to refine you. And so like you need to look inward and be able to be like, oh, okay, like I, sometimes like I catch an attitude, like, so maybe I do need a partner that's gonna like, pull me in, drown me out and stuff, like, and being able to like really look inward and be like, who am I? And then what does God want for me in like the characteristics that I see from who I am?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, Devin, top us off. What's the cherry on top?
Man, I'm just so full. I think that we can all agree that as we men submit to God, it's going to line us up for somebody to follow in our footsteps. And
the right one, right?
The right person to follow in our footsteps. And when that situation is established, then there's so many good things that can happen in the world. Because now you have two people on the same page, following God, sticking together and building, and you like just like trying to build a house, right? You need solid bricks. And the society is built at its heart by families. And if we can't stand together, then the whole house is going to come down. So I think that's my little, I guess, bootleg analogy. That's my final thought. Yeah.
I add one more thing. Submission isn't easy, but possible. That's what I would like to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a journey all in its own.
It is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, submission is not a curse word. It's not a bad word. Just grow together. That's something that you truly want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, another beautiful conversation wrapped up. Thank you for joining us. And as always, heal responsibly. Till next time.